When Ridley Scott returns to science fiction, I do not treat it like just another release on the calendar. I stop and pay attention, because this is the filmmaker who gave cinema some of its most unforgettable visions of the future, from Alien and Blade Runner to The Martian. But with The Dark Stars, Scott is not going back to deep space or neon cities. He is stepping into something quieter, lonelier, and maybe more frightening: a devastated Colorado, a pilot living with his dog, an old Cessna, and one mysterious radio signal that could either lead to hope or disaster. The first footage from The Dark Stars has finally been shown, and what stands out immediately is that this does not look like a basic post-apocalyptic survival movie. It feels more personal than that, more human, more haunted. The film reunites Scott with the Revenant screenwriter Mark L. Smith and adapts Peter Heller's acclaimed novel of the same name. The story follows Hig, a civilian pilot living in an airplane hangar after a deadly flu pandemic wipes out most of humanity. He survives with his dog, and with Bangley, a former Marine who protects their small world from whatever remains outside. That setup already tells me this movie is reaching for something deeper than empty roads and random violence. In this world, a hangar becomes a home, a dog becomes family, a radio signal becomes a temptation, and when almost everyone is gone, even a voice in the distance can feel like a miracle or a trap. That is the kind of uncertainty Ridley Scott knows how to turn into tension. During 20th Century Studios' CinemaCon presentation, the trailer reportedly opened with Jacob Elordi's Hig entering a room while holding a puppy and introducing it to his wife. Then the footage jumps forward into the ruined world, where Hig and that same dog travel across lonely landscapes. That contrast matters. It tells us this film is not only about what happened after civilization collapsed. It is about the life Hig lost before everything changed. Jacob Elordi plays Hig, and this could become one of the most important roles of his career so far. Hig does not sound like a traditional action hero. He is a widower, a pilot, and a survivor who may still believe there is something left worth reaching for. That makes him dangerous in a different way. In a world built on fear, hope can be the most reckless thing a person has. Josh Brolin plays Bangley, and from the footage, he seems to represent the opposite worldview. Bangley sees strangers as threats, movement as risk, and survival as something that requires discipline, suspicion, and force. That gives the story its central emotional pressure. Hig may want to reconnect with the world. Bangley may believe the world is exactly what they need protection from. Be honest, that is the kind of conflict that can carry a movie if the writing is sharp enough. The cast around them immediately raises the stakes. Margaret Qualley plays Chima, who appears to become a major emotional figure in Hig's journey. Guy Pearce plays Pops, Chima's father and a former naval officer. Benedict Wong appears as part of Hig and Bangley's community. And the trailer also confirms Allison Janney in a role that is still being kept quiet. What I find most interesting about the footage is how it seems to balance beauty and danger. The landscapes are wide open, but they do not feel peaceful. The sky looks enormous, but not comforting. The world may be empty, but it is never safe. That is where Scott's visual instincts could make The Dark Stars stand apart. Instead of making the apocalypse feel loud, the trailer makes it feel abandoned, and abandonment can be terrifying. Empty roads, silent mountains, a plane cutting through the sky, a radio frequency breaking through the quiet. That is why comparisons to I Am Legend and The Last of Us make sense, but I do not think this movie wants to be a copy of either one. If it follows the emotional core of Heller's novel, The Dark Stars could be more poetic, more reflective, and more painful. The trailer also hints that the story may expand beyond Hig and Bangley's hangar. Hig and Chima appear in locations that do not seem to belong to his usual home, which could mean she comes from another surviving community. If that is true, then their connection may create a bridge between two different ways of living. Or because this is a post-apocalyptic drama and happiness is usually treated like contraband, it could create a conflict over trust, resources, and territory. Guy Pearce's Pops may become part of that conflict. The footage suggests he might not simply be a protective father or another survivor with a sad backstory. He could become an obstacle, maybe even an antagonist, depending on how the film handles him. And in a Ridley Scott story, that kind of moral gray zone is usually where the real danger starts breathing. The central mystery comes from the signal. While flying his old Cessna, Hig hears something over the radio, and that sound pulls him toward a search that could change everything. In a world where staying alive often means staying hidden, chasing a signal is almost irrational, but it is also deeply human. We are wired to answer voices in the dark. We want to believe someone else is out there. The question is whether that belief saves Hig or destroys him. That is why The Dog Stars has my attention. Yes, Ridley Scott is directing. Yes, Jacob Elordi, Josh Brolin, Margaret Qualley, Guy Pearce, Benedict Wong, and Allison Janney make this one of the stronger casts on the upcoming sci-fi calendar. But the real reason this movie feels interesting is the choice at its center. Does Hig stay protected with Bingley and accept the small life they have built? Or does he risk everything because a signal might mean connection, rescue, love, or a future? The film is also walking into an unusual box office situation. It is currently set to open against the long-delayed Coyote vs. Acme, which makes that weekend a strange clash of tones. On one side, a Ridley Scott post-apocalyptic sci-fi drama. On the other, a very different kind of fan-driven curiosity. But The Dog Stars has something valuable, a clear identity. It looks built for a dark theater, a wide screen, and an audience willing to sit with silence. That may be its biggest advantage. In a market crowded with sequels, reboots, superheroes, and franchise machinery, The Dog Stars feels like a different kind of event. It is not selling nostalgia. It is selling mood. It is selling atmosphere. It is selling the image of one man, one dog, one plane, and one impossible signal in a world that has forgotten how to answer back. For me, that is the hook. Not just the pandemic setting. Not just the survival angle. Not even just Ridley Scott's name. The real hook is whether this movie can make the end of the world feel intimate. Because when apocalypse stories work, they are not really about the world ending. They are about what people choose to protect when almost nothing is left. The Dog Stars is set to arrive in theaters on August 28th. And if this first footage is any indication, Scott may be delivering a science fiction film that cares less about spectacle for its own sake and more about the emotional cost of staying alive. I will be watching this one closely, because if the movie finds the right balance between survival, mystery, and heartbreak, it could become one of the year's most quietly powerful sci-fi releases. So now I want to know where you stand. Are you here because of Ridley Scott, because of Jacob Elordi, or because this sounds like the kind of post-apocalyptic story Hollywood does not make enough anymore? Keep that question in mind, because The Dog Stars may not be the loudest movie coming, but sometimes the quiet ones are the ones that stay with us the longest. Until the next update, keep watching the horizon, stay sharp, and I will see you in the next Screen Radar Breakdown.